friends.
I'm so excited about this episode. I'm like flapping my hands around. It's going to be a good one.
Flappy Bird style. Remember that? R.I.P.
R.I.P.
I had that on my phone for like a year after it got deleted from the App Store.
Like out of spite?
Well, like I didn't want to delete it and then like want to play it again. You know.
Just in case. All right, Brandon, who do we have as a very special guest today?
Today, we have someone who I have really adored on TikTok because they do such a great job at presenting scientific content in a way that makes sense with my brain, which is not a very scientific brain. So I really appreciate actually getting to learn stuff and have it process in a way that allows me to keep that information in my brain. But we have Nika from Ches Flora on the podcast right now.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you
Hi.
for being with us today. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're excited to learn.
Heck yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in plants, how you got involved in them, like how you are today, what got you to love them?
Yeah, so yeah, my name's Nika. I am a fifth-year botany student at Colorado State University here in Colorado, obviously. I started with plants a long time ago. I was thinking about this before I came on the show, but I used to have plants like as a pre-teenager in my bedroom, and they were horribly etiolated, like stretched out succulents and like
Relatable.
sad cacti. But I had them, and I still even have a cactus from way back then, which is very old and sad now. But anyway, my dad is actually he grows trees. And so I've always been around plants. My parents have a really big backyard. And so we always grew up with a garden and lots of plants around. And I guess I never really thought about them as like a career or as something that I really wanted to do until I got to college. And I had a really amazing teacher for my 120 like intro to botany course. Because I was undeclared going into college, or I thought I wanted to do like applied sciences, like engineering, or I'm also interested in architecture, but that's kind of like a long-term life goal maybe. But so I thought I was doing that, and I had this amazing teacher for my first year of botany, and I was like, okay, plants are really cool. They're so much more complex and complicated and intricate, much more than the general public or like I ever thought before. And that was really exciting. And so then I was a horticulture major for a hot second, and found again that I really liked the hard science of it all, and had already had a fair amount of experience with horticulture, working with my dad and working on nurseries and gardening and all that. And I wasn't sure I wanted to like run a greenhouse or do something like that. So I went long story short, now I'm in the botany program, which is pretty small at CSU. I think there's only maybe like 30 students in the botany program. Yeah, it's really tiny. And I love it. I like it's so much fun. And like the semesters that I haven't taken as much plant related courses, I'm just sad. And so it's been really, really cool. And the world of botany, again, is just like so much more complex and intricate than you could think. Like you think like, oh, animals are like way more complex and they like move around, and maybe they're more interesting for a lot of people, but even though plants have a totally different life cycle, and then also functionality sort of in their shape and their form, the way that they can respond to their environment is actually just as complex, but maybe or certainly more nuanced than their animal counterparts. And then I'm also technically a French major, so that's partially why I'm a fifth year undergraduate student, because I'm double majoring.
That's so cool.
It's pretty fun. It's obviously like a completely different department, so I just have a lot of credit. Like I think I'm going to graduate with like 400 credits, which is
my gosh,
yeah,
insane.
I can't
it's just not.
UW Eau Claire would have been like, you got to pay for 2 majors. That'll be Double the funds.
Even when I was going to be like a music education major, they set it up as a double major. They're like, you go through the music program, you go through the education program, and it's like two separate majors. Insane, which I didn't, obviously, it didn't even make it past the first year. So I'm not a double major type of girl.
Oh man. I mean, I've taken it really slow. My mom actually works at CSU, so I get a fat discount. Otherwise I would not be able to do this. Like I really wouldn't. That is such a privilege that is allowing me to go to university and to like choose what I want to do and to stay a year and a half extra and do those extra credits, so that I don't think I'll actually have 400 credits, but it is a lot of classes for sure. But I'm really proud of it. And like I was just going to do a French minor. I lived in France for like 6 months before I came to school, and also very fun, very privileged thing to do. It's like the singular luckiest thing I've ever done in my life. But my French teacher was like, yeah, I'm not going to let you do a minor. Like, you have to do a major. Like, I'm not going to let you stop now. Like, okay, I guess I'm double majoring, but fine. So that's my education background, I guess. But Chez Flora is my business that I've been running since 2018, I believe. And it's a houseplant company, but I specialize in doing consults and like in-home care, and I also do virtual consults. And basically, I help people with existing plants or new plants that they want to get. And I use science to kind of teach them about their plants. I also offer things like repotting service and pruning, and I'll do propagation, or sometimes I'll do rehabs where I'll actually like take plants home from people and then bring them back when they're better. I kind of do anything that people want me to. It's really fun because it's creative too. Like it is very much a horticulture sort of job. I don't think about it as a job, but it's horticulture. But then like I'm also helping this one woman with her like interior design of her house, like because the plants go with that, and I like interior design stuff, so I'm helping her with that. And then I was helping someone plan a wedding, and then so I do lots of odd jobs, and I'm pretty much open to whatever people want to do, and I like experimenting and learning with that. And then I also sell plants retail at a small little boutique in the old town, like the cute little downtown area in my city, and that's really fun. So yeah, that's me.
I love it. Are you originally from Colorado?
Yeah, I am. So I live in Fort Collins, which is about an hour north of Denver, and I was born and raised here. Never thought I would go to CSU, never thought I would stay here, but it's been really lovely, and I have an amazing community here, and it's cool to have my parents really close by. They literally live like 6 blocks away. It's really special. I've come to really appreciate it, and really value like all the people that I know, and like you can't really beat having like a close community of people all around the neighborhood.
Oh yeah. Do you have a lot of like local plant friends or people that you're trying to get into plants?
I have not a ton of plant friends locally. I know a lot of people like in the local plant community. I keep myself very busy.
Relatable.
So I'm a full-time student, and I run Chez Flora. I had a restaurant job for a long time, and I'm not doing that anymore, but I actually just got a new job at, this is another cool planty thing, at the National Laboratory for Genetic Resources Preservation, which is like a really, really long name. But we just call it the Seed Lab. And the whole deal is it's run by the USDA, and it's a seed vault. So we protect genetic resources, and we categorize and take lots of samples. We literally have, I want to say 5 million accessions of seeds and cuttings and different plants and even some animal samples from all over the world to protect the genetic resources that holds.
That is so cool.
It's really cool. It's really amazing. It's and then the whole deal is that like the building is like apocalypse proof, so it has like 4 foot deep, like
they're protecting them. They're like, if we go extinct, these plants are staying.
Yeah, no, that's literally what it's for. So I haven't officially started that yet, but that's my new like big girl botany job.
Well, that'll be so cool.
That is so cool.
I'm really excited about that. So that's like the big botany news in my life.
Yeah, you should make some TikToks about that. We want to hear about it.
Yeah, I will. I actually, I should say that like some of it is like, it's not like confidential work.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably a little secret.
But I do need to like, I need to get briefed on like what I can.
Oh yeah, they're probably gonna make you sign like an NDA or something.
Can't talk about the
like
alien
I'm not
plants.
trying to get like.
Yeah, the plants that we took from like other planets or something.
Right. Or like, yeah, like there is like some security stuff around it, but what I've told you, I mean, like is totally fine. But I want to, well, and I'm curious too, like maybe I could make videos there and like show people what happens. Like, I think that would be really cool, or even start an account for them, because it's really amazing work.
Oh yeah. Yes. Bring that up. Start an account. Yes.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool. And I think it could be like a really fun thing. That's like not what I was hired to do at all.
Oh my gosh, but that's what people need.
Really awesome.
People who care about like what they're doing and be like, you know, I want to share with people why it's important to preserve plants. Why should we even care about the genetics of these plants and preserving them?
Yeah, so. It's really amazing. So that's a very cool thing. And hopefully, even if I can't share like too much, like while I'm there, I'll definitely make videos about like what I'm doing and about like the fact that it even exists. Like there's a bunch of them all over the world, like seed vaults like that.
Because isn't there one in Antarctica?
There's one in Norway.
Or somewhere really cold. So it must be the Norway one that I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think it's the Norway one.
It's like in the middle. Yeah, it's like a.
Yeah, I'm like, I know the people in Antarctica. The people in Antarctica are vaulted in when it's like it's super super cold up there. So they gotta like. I've seen that. That's what I love about TikTok is I see all parts of the world. So I'm like, yeah, I've seen videos of people up there where they like turn the whole thing and they're like, yep, it's like negative 50 degrees out today. I can't stand out here for more than 5 seconds or I'm gonna die. So have a good day, guys. Like,
yeah, TikTok's crazy like that. And you just like you're scrolling through and you see like every different environment. It's really, really cool. Yeah, the one there is like under a mountain, and then the one here is just like at the university. Like it's just like it looks like any other building from the outside, except that like one portion of it obviously has like 0 windows on it. But like you would have no idea that it was there. But it's not like a secret that it's there.
I was imagining like it would look like a maximum security prison, and you're like going through security, even getting into the parking lot, and there's like gates and barbed wire.
People with machine guns.
Yeah, there's people on the roof looking over the land, like I'm protecting these plants.
Yeah,
that's the only security job I would take.
Protecting biodiversity. Yes, I love it. No, seriously,
I think you'd be good at that.
They definitely have like locked doors, but it's pretty chill. I mean, it is still just the USDA. So if you know anything about the USDA, it's like kind of farmery.
Yeah,
like
the USDA, it's like cows. The first thing that comes to my brain.
Yeah, they're like, we're not in relation with the military whatsoever.
No, not very different vibes for sure. Similar bureaucracy maybe, but no, it's cool stuff. I'll send you guys photos or something. Yeah, so that's my big girl botany job. Shea Flora, we talked a little bit about.
That's you.
That's me. That is me. I like eating a lot of food. Those are my other things. I like food and I like art and design. And yeah, but plants are kind of a little bit all encompassing. But it's cool to get like again the science behind it and like explain the magic to people. I think that's what like really gets me going these days is, I think when I started getting into plants, I was like, wow, like there's so much we don't know. Or it was really, I don't know. Like there was so much that I didn't know. But as you like dig deeper, you're like, oh yeah, somebody studied that. Like there's a paper that you could read about like cell signaling or like, you know, the leaves moving, and we think it's all just like magic, but it's, I mean, the majority of it is just chemistry, which is very cool. I've found that I really enjoy chemistry, which a lot of people are like, oh, how could you?
I like the math.
Which is fine. I totally get it. But if you're not like applying chemistry, like obviously you're not going to find it interesting. But if you have like a base level understanding of that, you can start to understand like really the basis of how plants work, and that can give you then better skills to treat them and diagnose and care for them in general. So that's like kind of what I try to do with Shea Flora, is bring the science to people in a way that is accessible and hopefully fun is the other idea.
Plants are always fun.
Yeah, I love that you guys also, both of you, have like all the plant merch all the time. The shirts, endless, love it.
I'm always wearing a plant shirt.
Yeah,
I can't
Nicole's
help
much
myself.
more than me. I just wear the same shirts every day.
It's like a problem. Like most of my wardrobe now is like plants, t-shirts, and sweatshirts.
Yeah.
So like, hell yeah, like awesome.
Like every time like a friend puts out a shirt, I'm like, oh, I need that. Or like my mom gets me a lot of, hi mom. My mom gets me a lot of plant shirts. I'm like, oh, I found this for you. I thought you'd like it. Which I'm, of course, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep,
but I'm like, I need to be done with the sweatshirts though. That's a problem.
I know. I'm hot.
I mean, I have 3 of the same one from you now.
Yeah, well, that's, you're welcome.
It's nice though, because one's always clean.
Well, and you are the only person. So basically, long story short, the printing supplier we use messed up orders twice. And finally, on the third round, sent the right order. But
to some of them.
Nicole was the only person who received the proper size. Everyone else received a size completely opposite of what they ordered.
I kept getting the wrong color. This is the problem when you have to outsource your like shipping and packaging and everything. So it's like Brandon's out here with the great design, but he's got to rely on somebody else to be packaging it. He's not looking over what they're doing. And then they just send them back. And then people are like, I got the wrong thing. And then he's like, fuck. And then he has them send like new ones, and then everyone gets the wrong thing again. And it's like, oh, I'd be pulling my hair out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
I felt so bad. Do you remember when I sent you that Snapchat?
Able to like put the charge on the person, like on the company that messed it up?
They covered it, right?
They paid for it all. So everyone got 3 sets for the price of one, but Nicole at least got one she could wear.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I still fitted mine.
That's kind of funny. I just did some merch for Shea Flora, and I did a couple test runs like before I ordered anything, and then I pre-ordered everything after I like figured out what I liked. But like one of the test ones I did, like the printing was like doubled, like it just like looked really weird and bad. And then I did like a couple different options with like the design on the front and then like something different on the back, or like vice versa. And my sister, she liked this one, like, actually it was the one that had like the double print, but then it also had like something on the front that was like kind of on like on your chest, like on the corner or whatever. And she didn't like that, so she turned the whole shirt around and then like cut the collar so that it like fit, so that was on the front. And then like my partner has now like 2 or 3 like mess up ones, and then I have one, and I have a hoodie. I don't know, but I pre-ordered it, and it all went mostly according to plan. But I like paid for the shipping here, and then I'm gonna pay for shipping kind of again to go to other people. Sort of. I was trying to figure that out as well, but who knows? Okay. The perils of shipping plant merch. How
it sounds expensive. Yeah, it sounds expensive either way.
We just had someone order one from the UK, and I was like,
how much?
Why did it just charge so much? I was like, why did it charge so much for a sweatshirt? It was like literally made, because ours is print on demand. So when someone orders it, like the company prints one of it and then ships it out.
And they have to charge you immediately for that shirt.
And so I was like, oh my, because the sweatshirts are like $40. It charged like $38. And I was like, what on earth? They're like $19. Like, what? It's because it's going to the UK. So it was like all the taxes to ship it to the UK is what got us.
Yeah, probably like
still made
$15.
$1.50 off of that, but
Shout out to the person, they might be listening. So hi, person in the UK, sporting the Monstera Plant Co.
the first international.
Yeah, you're Mr.
MPCO.
Worldwide. Mr.
So special.
Worldwide.
They get a whole shout out. Amazing.
We like to single people out here.
Yeah, we do. It's a
Heck
problem.
yeah. I'm like, who can I single out? No,
Oh
you
my
know
God.
who I'm gonna shout out is my professor, David Steingraber.
Hi, David.
Hi, David. He's the guy who I took 120 with like all those years ago, and now I'm taking his graduate level course right now.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
He's
Circle.
retiring this semester, and he's like
Aw.
he's like the best. So hi, David Steingraber. Thank you for being my botanical inspiration.
That's amazing. I love that very much.
He's a great guy.
Well, before we get into the like nitty gritty, like sciencey things, because we're learning a lot today, you guys. Will you tell us a little bit about like your favorite plants specifically? Because I think a lot of us like kind of collect the same plants, but are there any that you gravitate towards more? Like when you're shopping, like is there like, oh, I'm a Hoya person, I love my ficuses, or are you big, just kind of like open to all plants because you're just a plant lover?
I like the weirdos for sure. I do like Hoyas, and I don't have like a ton of rare plants. Like I have a lot of common stuff. I have like a big Thai constellation.
Yeah, I'm like, you have a massive Thai constellation. Okay.
That makes up for anything else. But no,
it's beautiful.
I got that for $40.
Oh, that makes it even better.
Oh my God.
That makes it even better.
I got that for $40 as a cutting in 2020 or 2019.
That's still very good.
Was it how big was this
It was
cutting?
big. It was big already.
Was
so
it just like
from,
a very generous plant person? Because I feel like it
I
was.
think it was well, long story. I used to work at this hostel in town called the Solarium, which is no longer, but it's in this building that was built in the 70s that has an atrium in the center. It's here like locally, and they have like ficus trees and monsteras and pothos and everything like growing inside, like it's like tropical in there. And they had 2 Thai constellations in there that were planted in there literally in like the 1980s or something, like probably when Thai constellation was like created, right? So many years ago.
They're being passed around.
Yeah, passed around, and so they were there for a long time. And I think the hostel was trying to like, oh yeah, it was during the pandemic. It was like right at the very beginning of the pandemic, March of 2020. I'm like last March. No, two.
Oh my God. Dramatic.
Yeah. And yeah, and I think they were trying to like raise some money, and so I think they chopped one of them up and like gave cuttings away for like, again, really not very expensive. I even told them, I was like, hey, like if you're trying to like raise funds right now, because they didn't have anyone staying in the hostel because it was a pandemic, but like you can be charging like way more for these. Like I'm talking about like 10 times more than what you're charging, or whatever, however much. But they were like, no, this is good. Okay.
You're like, shit, I'm not gonna.
So there are some other people like in the area who also have cuttings from the same plant. But I got the top cutting, which is why it never had like smaller leaves, because the other cuttings were like just the the center one with a big leaf on it. But mine didn't have to. I think it put out like one slightly smaller leaf while it was rooting. But now the leaves are like literally bigger than I am. Like really, that plant it's kind of a pain in my ass.
Oh
like,
yeah,
same.
I'm sure it takes
content.
Right. Like there's literally it takes up like a whole corner of my plant room. Like there's nowhere else I could put it. Like my partner's like, oh, that would be cool if we could have it in the living room.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
like it would be cool.
Where?
Wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah, that would be cool. And then I thought about like taking it to the boutique, Kansas City Kitty, which I can talk about later. I'll name drop them too. But thought about taking it there, but then I'm like, okay, like I don't want someone to like break into their shop because like someone would try to steal this plant. Like it's that type of plant that someone would smash
people are crazy.
Yeah, so I don't want to take it
next
there.
Vice documentary.
Oh my God, horrible. Well, and then like I hear like all these horrible stories about like plant shops getting broken into, and like most of the time they're just like stealing money, but that just like makes me.
There's been ones that they're straight up stealing plants, like Irium in is it Portland?
Yeah, Irium. They
had
Portland.
multiple, and I think that
It's
each
so
time
sad.
it was. I think they took plants each time.
Also,
like
so
that's nuts.
horrible.
Like really, and I think the second time it was like really uncommon cacti, like just massive old plants. They get some big plants in, and they have a giant constellation there. You probably couldn't move that thing out if you tried. They have such a big one.
Amazing.
I'd love to go over
you
there.
have to be like seriously prepared for what you were gonna do to like wheel out a cactus.
You don't just like randomly decide like, oh, I'm just driving past this plant shop. Like I think usually people. I think the guy cut the lock too. Like they're prepared to come
surprise.
Take the
Nicole's the ringleader.
Yeah, I'm like, I've thought about this. I have my plan.
Yeah,
it's bad.
Well, anyway, so that plant can't live anywhere. Going back to your question, I know we're all over the place. I don't have a lot of like super uncommon stuff, but I like weirdos and I like sentimental stuff. So probably like my favorite plants for sure. I have a lemon, a really horrible looking, like it's like the most unaesthetic plant that you've ever, like ugly, like not just like bad, like ugly. But it's a lemon tree that is a cutting from my grandfather's tree in California. And they no longer live at that house anymore. They're passed away, both him and my grandmother. But like I have that plant from that tree. So that's one. And then I also have an avocado tree that is 14 years old that I started from a pit when I was 10. And it's like
what the heck?
It's a whole ass tree in my living room. That's why I can't put the Thai constellation in there, is because there's literally a tree in my living room.
You're like, I'm busy keeping these other heirloom plants alive.
But yeah, those really, like you just said that heirloom, those are like my favorite plants. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm working with clients, a lot of the plants that I work with are really old plants, really sentimental plants to people. And that is like so special to me. Because a lot of people are like nervous about doing work on them. They don't want to mess them up. And so I can come in and like, give them a little peace of mind and help out. But I've been able to see some really amazing collections, and then old plants and people who are just like, I've literally had this plant forever. My grandma had it forever, like just the generations of plant. That's really cool. And then I have some weirdos, like some small guys and succulents. In my house, it's like you have to be able to dry out or you don't get to play. Like that's the rule. I'm thinking of one. I have a maidenhair fern.
Yeah, I'm like, you have ferns. What are you talking about? You
have
staghorn fern.
I do have some ferns. But for the most part, even still though, I just have that. Okay, the maidenhair fern that I have it way overplanted. So I have it in a pot that is like too big for
It'll take a while to dry out. And, you're like,
so it takes longer to dry out. So that's like a really good tip for ferns is like, yeah, overpot that. Like why you don't overpot other plants is because you don't want it to stay too wet, but with ferns it's like you need that. So
yeah, I should have done that with my Boston fern. I was watering my Boston fern like every other day because it was just like,
that's too much work.
It was completely, especially when they sell these big plants, they're so root bound, they're so like ready for a repot, like they are so thirsty. So if you guys ever buy a big Boston fern, maybe repot it right away. Or it's going to become a pain in the butt. Except those things, that's one plant that I could never hang up. Like I love the look of a big hanging Boston fern. I think it's stunning when they look good. But they're very heavy. Like it's a very heavy plant. It's a lot of soil. So that I actually like hung one up at my old apartment and I used 2 stick-on command hooks. I'm like, we'll just double up because that's good, right? And it didn't. I don't remember if it fell or not. I don't know if I took it down because I was like, there's no way this thing isn't gonna fall. But actually, maybe it did, and then it ripped the plaster off the wall.
How you have not had more plant falls from command hooks is beyond me.
Oh yeah, I don't have a lot of plants hung up anymore.
Yeah,
actually, my dad came over. Shout out, Dad. He loves when I mention him. Like he's like, when are you gonna bring me on the podcast? I'm like, to talk about what? And he's like, to talk about my influence on your plant journey. He's a Leo.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Now I forgot what I was talking about. That's what happens.
Plants falling, plants hanging.
Yeah. So my dad came over and he actually put real hooks in the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
So all of my actual hanging plants are real, like anchored into the ceiling hooks.
Nice.
Yay! Thumbs up.
Love that.
It's the fanciest thing I have now. Like I don't even have my plants on self timers yet.
Yeah, no,
but like real hooks in the ceiling, that's like advanced for me.
No, that's great. It's this house that we live in is from the 1940s. It's like really rickety. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful house. But they have like there were already hooks in the ceiling, like in pretty much every room.
Yeah, what was everyone hanging in these old houses? Every old house I've ever lived in has hooks everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought about lamps, maybe. Like,
like
those
ugly
big,
light
like,
fixtures
with the chains.
Yeah,
and
the
the
chains.
yellow cords.
The chains.
With
Yep.
the chains. But now there's a couple plants on them, but a lot of them are like weirdly close to a wall, or like just not, like they're not good plant places. So
no.
I'm thinking like maybe Miss Grandma had like a themed, like a seasonal thing she'd hang up. Like my mom, in our old house, my mom used to put out flags, and she would seasonally change the flag, like an Easter flag and stuff.
Same.
So maybe they have like some fun decor that switches out in the ceiling. That's just what I was thinking about. In the last
we had a Halloween decorations up until February this year.
Oh, same. Oh, absolutely same.
Don't you still have some Halloween decorations up, or did you finally take them down?
Those pumpkins might still be up.
Oh my gosh.
I took most of them down. But you know, here's this is wrong with my brain. You know why I haven't taken them down? Because I never plugged them in. They were never even on. They've been hanging up waiting to be used. So I'm like, shoot, I never plugged them in. I can't take them down. They haven't even been used yet.
Oh my gosh.
Also, it's right above the bunny exercise pen and just cords around her. It's not a good idea. I've learned my lesson. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we've been should we take a break before we get into like the nitty-gritty?
Let's take a little quick break and then we'll dive into some actual science, which we've been promising you. And
hell yeah.
We're learning. People always learn. I mean, they tell me they learn stuff and I'm like, you do? What?
Yeah. I'm glad. No, I love it. Yeah.
All right,
we'll talk about Halloween decorations next time. We'll make a new podcast.
We're actually going to start a Halloween decoration podcast. You guys, so stay tuned.
Yeah, you're gonna be jealous of my styrofoam skulls. Okay, enjoy the break.
Hey Minneapolis friends, what are you doing April 30th, 2022? Monstera Plant Co. is hosting our first ever event, the Foliage Fling and Market. This event will start with a plant swap where you can trade plants with other local planty people. And after the swap, you can stay a while and shop our market full of plants, vintage, and other local vendors. We'll even have a food truck so you can stay and hang out all day. There's also going to be a scavenger hunt for the 2 weeks before the event where you can hunt down your dream plants and other great prizes. But don't worry, if you don't win the scavenger hunt, you can always enter the raffle and win big at the event itself. Go to www.monsteraplant.co to find out all the details and register for the plant swap. Also, if you do have a business local to Minneapolis or St. Paul and would be interested in becoming a vendor, send us an email at contact@monsteraplant.co. We can't wait to see you on Saturday, April 30th for the Foliage Fling and Market, brought to you by Monstera Plant Co., Siempre Viva Vintage, and Ambibulis. Come hang out with me and Nicole, and let's have some fun and swap some plants.
Hey plant friends, it's Nicole. Listen, I love chatting plants with you guys on Instagram, but it can be tough for me to get to all of my messages. So if you've ever wanted to book me for a virtual plant consultation, you can go to superpeer.com/NicoleLarsonGrows and use code GROW, that's GROW, for a discount. I do 15-minute, 30-minute, and 60-minute consultations. We can talk anything from pests to transitioning to LECA, anything you want. I promise it's not scary. All right, the ad is over. Back to the plants.
And we are back.
Welcome back, friends.
Now we're getting into the nitty gritty.
Yes, so now we are into the science. So we all know that the nucleus is the powerhouse of the cell, but
is it
mitochondria?
It's the
mitochondria. It's been a long time since I have taken a class in science. Okay?
I was like, I got that. I got it. I clocked it.
So let's move on to kind of more of the actual like fun stuff.
The
about
physiology.
the science of plants that isn't the lame stuff that I couldn't obviously remember from school. So yeah,
we're getting
cool
a little
plant
lesson.
Science.
Yeah, we're getting into the physiology, getting physical. Brandon just spit out his drink.
just trying to enjoy a sip of wine, and you really got me roasting with those.
Oh my gosh, take it away.
Well, so what you said about nuclei
what I tried to say.
or nucleus is actually, it's a great place to start. So mitochondria, mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell.
And what is a powerhouse? Because honestly, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So, well, okay, let's start here.
She's HR. She's the headquarters. In charge.
Nucleus is the headquarters, like you said.
That's what I assumed a powerhouse was, so that's why I said that.
Well, no, it makes sense.
There's apparently different departments that they work in.
There are many different departments within the cell. But what the mitochondria does, or what a mitochondrium, which is the singular of mitochondria, which is plural, what it does is it breaks down the sugars and it makes ATP, which is the sort of cellular form of energy that plants use and that we use. It's adenosine triphosphate. You don't need to know that, but ATP is like the energy currency of our bodies. And so mitochondria are taking the sugars that are produced in photosynthesis, and sort of the mitochondria's sibling, if you will, is the chloroplast. And chloroplast is what is green. It's also an organelle in the cell. So it has its own membrane. It has its own little sort of, it's separated from like basically the living soup that is a cell, because it really is just a soup. It's just messy in there. It's really,
they're all chilling
there's
together.
all kinds of stuff floating around.
The food is touching in the cell.
Yeah. The food is very much touching in a cell. So chloroplasts are an organelle, like I said, and they contain chlorophyll, which is a pigment that catches light, sort of.
That's what our eyeballs are seeing.
Yep, that's what we're seeing as green. So something cool about both chloroplasts and mitochondria, just as a side note, is that the best sort of explanation we have for why they are in cells is that they used to be free living bacteria or organisms, and then they were engulfed by another plant cell. And that's why mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own sets of DNA. That evolve and like get passed down through the generations with the nucleus DNA. It's really interesting. So they used to be free floating organisms, and now they act as sort of the different powerhouses of a cell, or the different like functioning parts of a cell, which is really cool. So at one point somebody like engulfed another cell, and then it was like, oh, like you're producing sugar, or you were allowing me to use that sugar. This is beneficial for you to be inside of me, so I'm going to keep you. And then they get replicated also within the cell, which is kind of cool. But back to chloroplasts and plants. The chlorophyll, again, is a pigment, and it appears to us as green, and plants appear to us as green because plants are actually absorbing mostly red and blue wavelengths of light, and then they reflect out that yellow and green spectrum, which is why like a lot of grow lights you see are like that horrible like pinky purple, like it's really bad.
And
we don't like it, but that's what the plants like.
That's why blue is so rare in plants, is why I hear like we don't really see like blue flowers that much, like blue plants.
Yep. So I think it's partially because blue pigments themselves are really difficult to synthesize like chemically. It's sort of a weird, I don't know really the physics or the chemistry behind that, but a lot of the blue that we do see, like sometimes you'll see it in begonias, that is actually structural color, meaning that if you ground up the leaves, you wouldn't be left with any blue. It's actually sort of like the iridescence that you see.
It's like reflects blue. Like they never look actually blue. It's like the light bouncing off that is like looking blue.
Yep, exactly. And that has to do with like the size of the lens, like this weird, like kind of like how a prism reflects different
like
colors.
our eyeballs work and how that
yeah. So that's
freaks
really
me
cool
out.
stuff. Yeah, it is kind of freaky. It is a little freaky for sure. But yeah, so blue is kind of unusual for sure. And that's also why I've talked about this in some of my TikToks, but like why certain plants either in highlight environments or in low light environments will produce red pigments, because red pigments are very much easier to produce and are widely used across the plant kingdom and also in other organisms like, red algae and other plant or animals, excuse me. But they can use that pigment to either block some of the light that's coming into their cells or to reflect light that has already gone through the leaf, and such that it like goes back through the leaf and gets photosynthesized. Not again, but it's more just like the photons have more chance of hitting what's called a photoreceptor when it like bounces back through. The photoreceptors, it sounds really scary, but it's just the parts of the chloroplast that holds the pigment. And I could go like really, really in depth with this, but I'll just what I'll say.
Like, I could keep going if you want me to.
Yeah, like I'll keep going a little bit further, just for people's understanding, because it's really cool. Like this is the magic of plants that I was talking about.
Oh, I'm like into this. Like if you guys could see my face, I'm just like, oh.
Brandon's like, oh my God.
This
like,
is what Mrs. Pepler was trying to teach me back in high school. Okay.
Oh God. The amount of traumatizing science teachers I've had, I can't even get into it.
Oh no.
One of them actually ended up almost killing someone. Anyways, go on.
Oh my God, at my high school, one of my science teachers did kill a bunch of people.
No.
And then he killed himself.
It's because you went to Wisconsin.
Oh no.
Oh my God. How did we get here?
Oof. Now I'm like, let's talk about photoreceptors.
I was going to ask you, because I remember you were talking a little bit about like the pigments and stuff. I feel like I remember a TikTok you mentioned something about like the colors in plants kind of acting like a sunscreen. And like the actual like colors, like not like the green that we normally see, but like actual like colors like the pink and the reds that we see.
Yep. So that's what I was talking about. Those pigments that are red or pink, or sometimes orange is a different type of chlorophyll actually, but those red and pink ones are called anthocyanins. And it's a whole family of different types of pigments, and they're produced by lots of different things in the plant kingdom, like fruits and flowers and then sometimes stems. We as sort of humans have selected for those traits, like those pigments in certain plants, like horticultural varieties, which is like why we have such a diversity of horticultural varieties. But like you often see maybe like begonias, or also certain philodendrons, like philodendron pink princess, of course, is a really great example of that, like where it's like a chosen. Yeah, it's like it was chosen by humans for its sort of weird coloration, but that was probably many, many generations of selecting specific plants that showed really high levels of anthocyanins, of those pink pigments, to sort of get to where we are today with the philodendron pink princess. So that's really cool, and again, it can act like sunscreen because those little photoreceptors will get blocked, like the red light will be reflected out before it hits those little receptors. And what happens in the receptors, which I was going to get to before we were talking about murder, was that electrons So photons come into the cells. Photons come into the cells, and electrons become excited, meaning they go to a higher energy state. Yeah, and you can kind of think about them as like sort of vibrating with energy from the sun. And as they fall back down, in quotations, those electrons are used to do, quote, work. And what they're doing is rearranging carbon dioxide, CO2, and water into sugar. So the energy that is put into those electrons is used to break bonds and then reform different ones. It's incredibly complicated. And then there's like the Krebs cycle, like there's all this Krebs cycle, I'm sorry, is that's respiration. But basically energy come in, electron get happy, electron fall down from being happy, energy from falling down make other thing happen. and that other thing is sugar. So sugar is produced again out of CO2 and water, and then oxygen is released. So that's basically what photosynthesis is, and it's amazing. It's not magic. We know the chemistry of it, but it feels like magic.
Plants
it really
know
does.
what they're doing. That's why I tell people plants want to grow despite you.
Yeah, they want to grow.
They want to grow.
And in the time that photosynthetic organisms first evolved, which is about, I want to say 2 billion years ago-ish, which is a long time, obviously, but it was like CO2 was the abundant gas in the atmosphere. So they were just like, oh, there's a lot of this, like, let's use that. That's cool. And nothing was using oxygen. There weren't really, maybe there were some respiring, like small little organisms in the sea that were using the oxygen, but the vast majority of our atmosphere was CO2. And then all of the oxygen that we breathe as like higher invertebrates, if you will, was produced by plants. That we wouldn't have oxygen, or certainly not as abundant oxygen in the breathable form if plants had not evolved. So plants allow us to live very much. So, which is pretty cool too.
Thank you, my friend.
They've evolved with us, and we've evolved with them. I don't know why, but randomly when you said like 2 billion years ago, I was like, how is this world not rotten? Kind of like when you leave old food in the fridge for a long time. And then I was like, well, if you really think about it, it is rotten. I mean, we fucked it up pretty bad. Like the gases, because there's gases that are released that are when there's moldy things going on. And I'm like, that's literally what we're doing to the earth, but on a larger scale.
The cars are moldy. The cars are moldy. No, I mean, it is kind of like that, but that's why I also think that like biology is also like a really cool solution to climate change also. Something that bothers me a lot is like we have the solutions to climate change. Like they exist and are out there. I could go down a very leftist
right, like
rabbit hole right now. I'm not going to, but
yeah, we're not trying to climate doom you all.
I do feel that a lot, but like plants are something that is like it is sort of refreshing because
they're still here. They're still here and they're happy for the most part.
And they're also evolving. Like they're constantly evolving. It's not like they just like stopped. Like evolution is still happening, and we are already and more and more are getting some really cool studies done and kind of new information coming out about plants and animals that are adapting to climate change and like actively changing their behaviors, and sometimes in some cases even their genetics and their physical structures in order to adapt to the changing climate. But it's cool because it's happening faster than we could have thought, which is very reassuring in some ways. Sometimes it's for the worst, but we can stop that there. But there are some exciting, like more promising, hopeful things from that side.
Yeah, I do follow a couple of people on TikTok that just strictly share like good climate news. And there are good things going on, like things being taken off the endangered species list. So there are things happening that we're not talking about. Random, like, I don't know, like maybe like an organism that we haven't been able to find for a long time popping back up, like just like random cool things. But anyway, so we talked a bunch about like, or you talked a bunch about colorful, like what makes plants colorful. So what makes plants specifically like velvety and then like give off that like sparkly sheen, like in our lovely anthuriums?
So those, or at least how I've seen them described in literature, they call them iridophores or iridophores. And basically when you see that like velvety texture, there is above the layer of cells that contain chlorophyll, there's a layer of cells that are pretty much just water. And so they act like little magnifying glasses because they're just like little orbs of pure, or not pure water, but like mostly pure water. I haven't found a whole lot of research about this, but maybe this is something I could do in the future. Not sure about that. But so basically they're mostly water and they act like magnifying glasses. And so that allows plants like that, like anthuriums and other tropical varieties, like again, begonias sometimes exhibit that same sort of shiny, shimmery, silvery looking effect. That's magnifying the low levels of light that they may experience in a place where they grow, which is like the understory of a tropical rainforest. And in the rainforest, every resource that's there is under extreme pressure because there's so many organisms living on top of each other. So like the soil, like if there's any nutrients in the soil, like there are reports of tree roots growing up other trees and then like putting their roots down into the crevices of branches because that's where like organic matter falls from the canopy because there's so little nutrients in the soil. Like they literally grow up trees to like find nutrients.
Trees like, I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah. Totally. So that's that evolution thing at work. Like they are living in this environment, and these little traits that they acquire mostly through mutation sometimes confer an advantage, sometimes allow them to be more successful. If they're getting more light, then they can maybe flower earlier because flowering takes a ton of energy off the plant. And like flowering structures generally aren't photosynthetic, so they're just well, there are some that are, but in general they are solely for reproduction. And especially if that like pollination is successful, like that's a lot of energy that the plant is investing into something that may not work. But so yeah, velvetyness are those little iridophores, and then of course like the pigmentation can like aid in that. So sometimes you get the red backs of the leaves, which I sort of talked about, and then the texture, I'm not so sure about that one, like why we actually feel that. A lot of plants that grow in tropical areas have waxy or like really smooth surfaces, and that is to keep water from sitting on the leaves, because there's so much water that they want to shed the water off so that the leaves literally don't like rot in the air because it's so humid. So like Monstera deliciosa, for example, has that like really waxy, shiny, a lot of philodendrons also. And then that's also why their leaf shape, sometimes they'll have like those little, well, the leaves will be pointy generally and hang down. And that is to sort of allow the water to drain off of it really effectively.
Got their drip tips.
Encourage those little droplets to form. I know a lot of people will see them like the day after you water and you come back and your plant's like releasing all that extra sweating. So that's called guttation, Guttatation.
G-A-T-I-O-N, I think, guttation. And that also sometimes happens, it like you said, it generally happens after you water, but what the physiology behind that is actually not so much that there's too much water. It can be that, but generally what's happening is that the plant is pushing air molecules that are stuck in the vasculature, or like the vascular plumbing of the plant. There'll be little air droplets, because if the soil was really dry before and then you put water on it, there may be like air droplets. So the water pushes those out, kind of, which is why there's extra water coming out of the tips.
Interesting. I'm sure whenever there's like a big flow of water, there's probably a big flow of oxygen. Things are being mixed around. Like I know that when I water certain plants, even if I put like funny fertilizer on, like it'll literally bubble up like before going down, like because like there's a lot of like water that's rushing and it's like pooling up and it's like literally bubbling. So it's like there's like extra oxygen flowing through there.
Well,
yeah, so that's mostly the
Monstera dripping on you. And
oh yeah, sometimes it's sweet too if you taste it. I wouldn't do that if you're doing like systemic insecticide or certain fertilizers, but like I taste my plants. It's kind of weird, but I do it. Like philodendron glad hands, which you mentioned during the break. They have what are called
the extra frill nectaries. I was just going to ask you about those because people always call the extra frill nectaries gutation, but isn't it kind of separate? Because I feel like the water droplets and the actual sap, I feel like those are two different things happening.
They are two different things. So I just mentioned the vasculature of the plant, but plants have sort of two types of plumbing, I'm going to use that, if you will. And that is, they have xylem and they have phloem. So xylem is the tissues in the plant that carry water, and xylem only goes up. So that means it's going from the roots up into the leaves and then pushing out the leaves. So xylem is where that guttation is happening. And then the extra fructose nectaries, IFN, they are coming from the phloem, and the phloem moves in both directions in the plant, and that's where sugars and minerals and amino acids and like all that kind of stuff is moving around. And in general, the xylem is going to be on the interior of the stem, sort of like in the middle, and then the phloem will be exterior to that. So the phloem will be in like kind of a ring around the outside. In monocots, it's different than dicots. We can talk about that in a second. It'll be different, but generally the phloem is on the outside and the xylem is on the inside, which protects the xylem and like the water moving parts of the plant from external like if the plant gets bent or cut, the water is much more important than the phloem is, like than the sugar and minerals are, because water, of course, is just like the basis of life, obviously, but but it's important for plants too. So they've evolved to sort of protect that from the outside of the plant also.
Oh my God, I thought of another random question.
Yeah.
I just keep throwing these in.
I love it.
Well, like, because you talked about when you like chop a plant and like water and all this. So when I chop, hypothetically, my pink princess and it looks like a bloodbath, what's all that shit coming out of the stem?
So that
I have stained many a carpet.
Question.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've stained my clothes with that shit. It's really bad.
Oh yeah. So what you're seeing is both fluid from the xylem and from the phloem. So like I said before, the xylem, which is the water moving parts again, is moving water up, and there's actually, like, you can think about it as a big straw, and what is sucking is the lack of humidity in the air. So there's a lot, in theory, right, in this situation, there's lots of water in the soil and lots of water in the plant, but there's not a lot of water outside of the plant. And so the water sort of gets sucked through these tubes, and there's actually pressure.
Just like skin.
Just like skin, yeah. Yeah, in the wintertime it's super dry. Well, that's water goes like that's a like a middle school biology project that you may have done, is like soaking an egg in vinegar or in water and then like weighing it and stuff like that. And basically what that is supposed to show you is that water moves to where there is less water as just like a principle, whether it's by diffusion or osmosis. Water goes where there is none, because basically the chemical gradients are trying to equilibrate or whatever. But going back to xylem. Xylem is sucking the water through the plant. And so sometimes when you cut it, that sort of force and that pressure is still moving upwards. And there's still pressure from the roots that's pushing the water up. So you'll see, like sometimes immediately when you cut, you'll see like liquid pushing from the bottom half of the plant, and maybe not so much from the top half of the plant, because most of the time it's going up. That being said, yeah, there you go.
Like, let's go grab a pink princess.
Yeah, I'm like, let's do an example.
Yeah. So, and then because the phloem is moving both ways, you can think about the phloem as moving sap. Like what we think about as being sap, that's pretty much what that is. And I want to say that
simple syrup.
The sap that's coming out that I'm feeling on the external nectaries, I'm like, oh, it's just the phloem.
Yep, pretty much.
Part
The
of mojito.
phloem is the tissue, but the sap is the stuff that comes out. Yeah, you're totally right though.
Amazing.
But I think if I'm not mistaken, I think pigments are most always secluded to the phloem, and there's not a whole lot of them in the xylem. So most of the pink stuff like that would come out of a pink princess would be from the phloem, whereas like the water would come out of the xylem.
Yeah, like when I accidentally knock off Hoya leaves and shit, the little like white liquid that comes out right away, and it like crusts over.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Same with ficus too, or euphorbia. They all have that sort of sticky.
Even syngonium does like a white blood.
Oh, I don't have many syngoniums. I maybe have 2.
Yeah, it's really weird. I was shocked that it came out white. Usually like philodendrons, I guess like my darker ones, like the really colorful ones will have that colorful cut, I guess. But then like really like boring green leaves, like they just are, I guess, clear, just water.
Yeah.
But then that good smell.
The smell. So like philodendron gladhands, you said that you maybe chopped, and it has a really interesting smell. So sometimes the smells are they're produced by what are called secondary compounds, and sometimes anthocyanins, like we just talked about, sometimes those are considered secondary compounds because they're not basically the definition of that is that they're not directly like their purpose isn't directly to like allow the plant to live. They're like additional things. So sometimes it's smells, or sometimes it's pigments, or sometimes it's sugars that are like to reward something that's going to eat the fruit or something like that. So those are secondary compounds. And oh no, I'm losing my train of thought. The pigments, or the smell, that's what I was going to talk about. So the smell could be like it might smell good to us, but it may actually be like an herbivory deterrent. There may be specific compounds in the sap that taste like really, really bitter, or taste really like salty sometimes, or even putrid, or like there's lots of different defense mechanisms, and we might think it smells good, but in reality, like if you bit into that and you're like munching around in the forest like eating salad, you'd be like, ooh, that one's gross, like not gonna eat that one. And a lot of especially tropical plants have a ton of those, especially species as opposed to horticultural varieties, have a lot of those defense mechanisms that protect them.
Interesting. Are they like protecting themselves, or are they protecting us from killing ourselves from eating it?
Well, so something that we talk a lot about in biology in general is animals. Sometimes it's debatable because they like they have sort of intelligence like we do.
But it's like plants are looking out for themselves.
This gets really messy, but
we're getting philosophical now.
Yeah, we are a little bit, but something that we're really careful about in biology in general is not talking about plants like they know what they're doing, because in general they don't. They are products of evolution. They're products of chemistry and their physiology or whatever, but they're not like, hey, I'm trying to protect you. They're completely we could get
it's in their genes. It's what they're programmed. Helpless. Yeah, they're programmed to do it, and they don't know why.
But how they get how they are how certain things like that occur, again, goes back to evolution and goes back to, hey, like this is conferring me an advantage. This is allowing me to reproduce and to pass my genetics on. So generally, I would say it's to protect them, because they will like if they got eaten, obviously they're not gonna make babies, like but at the same time, like there are certain animals and stuff that look like they're poisonous, right? Like, you know, like dart frogs and stuff like that. They're sort of a warning sign to animals, because if they were poisonous and they didn't look poisonous, things would probably still eat them, right? Like things would probably be like, oh, that just looks like a frog, I'm gonna eat it.
I'm looking at you, mushrooms.
Okay, maybe they got poisoned and died anyway. Yeah, right. You know, they got poisoned and died anyway. So it's just like an extra layer that like actually keeps them from getting eaten. I don't know. So there's lots of levels of that, and then there's mutualism and like other ecology sorts of concepts we could get into. But with any of your questions, I'm just gonna like run down like a huge rabbit hole, and like we can do a whole.
Well, yeah. Every time you go into something, I think of another question that I want to ask, and I'm like,
great! No, it's amazing. That's way better than having not anything to talk. You know, I'm glad.
Yeah, I literally grabbed the most random like topics to talk about, and half of them have nothing to do with each other, but it's just fun plant stuff and random things that come up. I do want to make like a fun right turn, because I just looking at the fasciation word, which a lot of people have never heard of that, but sometimes people randomly get like a mutant leaf that comes out like double or something, and like, oh my god, what's going on with my plant? So tell us about it.
Yeah, mutations are one of my favorite things to talk about and to find and to kind of think about like conceptually. So I guess where we'll start, so fasciation is what you asked about, which is basically when the plant like crests, or the top of it sort of becomes elongated, generally like horizontally as opposed to growing straight up. So sometimes you see like I think they call them coral cactus, or sometimes they'll call things crested. But so to talk about that, first we need to talk about meristems, and that's a really fancy word for growth point. And a lot of people like when you start to learn about propagation, you start to learn about meristems. But basically there's like a meristem at the top of the plant, and there's a meristem at the tips of the roots. And this is where the cells are actively dividing and new plant tissue is being produced. So that's where all the new leaves are produced, new stem tissue, that as well. Something I like to say too, and this is a David Steingraber-ism, is that like the story about Jack and the Beanstalk, of him like holding onto the base and then like getting pulled up into the sky, really doesn't work, because like, or it doesn't hold water, if you will, because the tissue that is
growing out of the ground.
Yeah, it's not growing out of the ground. It's growing from the tip. So he would hold on to it, and it may get thicker, or it may get, but he would stay in the same place, and the vine would, you know, be growing up into the sky. If he could somehow hold on to the meristem, he still would get stuck at that section unless he like continually climbed onto the part where it was dividing. Never took that one that far ever before, but
Like, well, hypothetically, if you were on a beanstalk.
Like if you were, yeah, like if you like hooked onto the new leaves and you could like climb up through the meristem. So new leaves are produced there and new stems, and it's where like I said, cells are dividing. So generally they are dividing via mitosis, meaning that they are creating basically one cell splits into two identical daughter cells. And that's what's supposed to happen, right? Sometimes mutations happen, whether it's generally it happens in the DNA, or sometimes like there's all different types of mutations, and like it's really wild, all the different things that can happen. But one thing might happen in the DNA that causes that division of the cells to happen, to continue happening horizontally, as opposed to the meristem just growing like one section, like sort of one module of plant, and then like another one. You can think about the nodes as modules of a plant, because they grow very differently than us. That's sort of a cool word, or like a cool fact, which most people understand. But plants have indeterminate growth, meaning that they just grow, like in theory, infinite parts that are similar to each other, whereas humans and other animals have, or not all other animals, but most animals have determinate growth. We have two hands, we have two eyes, we have one nose, and it will always have those things. Like we're not going to continue growing arms and legs. So what can happen sometimes, going back to meristems, is that the meristem will start dividing horizontally as well as vertically, and that's what causes sort of exponentially all of those cells start dividing, and you start getting this really crazy fanning effect where the meristem like continues growing sideways. So that's what fasciation is, and it can happen in stems, and it can happen also sometimes in flowers. Like if you like Google fasciation, you can see like crazy flowers, like sunflowers that are all like wiggly and weird. Really, really cool stuff. Fasciation is one example of a mutation type, but other types, like including variegation, or even like sometimes I've seen like, you know, weird leaves, like you mentioned, where it's like, oh, it has like 3 lobes on it, or it has like this weird ridge in the middle, or like there's no leaf at all and it's just a petiole, like really sort of strange stuff. And sometimes the plant just like literally makes mistakes. Like it's not that the plant is actively doing that, right? Like that's that teleological thing I was talking about before, where we're like assigning intelligence, which doesn't work. Yeah, sometimes in that division process in the meristems, stuff gets messed up, and sometimes it continues, and sometimes it just happens once and like that's it. Variegation, for example, the reason why some forms of variegation are really unstable is because there's large sections of the plant where that variegation is occurring and large sections where it's not. And if there's not a good mix of that happening in the meristem where those cells are dividing, that variegation won't be sort of proliferated, or the opposite, or it'll go all white and then you have an all white plant, and that's not good either. So basically, the meristem can only make new cells out of what it's given. And so if it doesn't have a good mix, like again, in the case of variegation, then it will sort of switch one way or the other.
The plant's like, I gotta go my own way.
They gotta do what they gotta do. One thing that came up when you were talking about all of that kind of like was a question in my brain. So there's a lot of plants that I have where I go to propagate them and I chop them. And instead of just continuing at the next lower growth point, they just start exploding from every growth point.
Every single node is activated.
What is that process?
I guess we're going to talk about oxen.
I guess we're going to talk about oxen. That is exactly right. So oxen is basically, well, there's lots of plant hormones. There's probably maybe like 10 that we know of, but more and like different ones happen all the time, and sometimes certain molecules act as hormone. Like it's I'm not a hormone expert by any means. It's really complicated, but auxin is kind of like the big one that dictates a lot of how the plant functions. It does a lot of different things, but the big ones is that it controls cell elongation and also stops bud development. So it prioritizes the top meristem, or sometimes called the apical meristem, because in general plants are wanting to grow from that top growth point because it's generally the closest to the light source. So auxin does those two things, and then how it is sort of regulated is that it is degraded by sunlight. So it's produced up in that shoot apical meristem, and then it travels down through the phloem. There you go. Travels down through the phloem and stops all those other buds from activating to sort of prioritize that top shoot. When you chop off the top, you're chopping off the source of auxin. And so those buds aren't sort of, they aren't inhibited anymore. And so they start to break, in quotations, they start to grow, which is cool. And so like a lot of gardeners, like not even houseplant people, like a lot of people, or they'll like pinch the tops of their basil, or they'll prune things to encourage more branching. And that is the physiology behind that, is that you're inhibiting the auxin, and that allows those other buds to break and sort of start new growth. And you can do it over and over again, because at one point, like the next bud will sort of become the apical one. And apical is really just, or like the topmost bud is really just in relation to other buds. So it can change which one is which, and then you can choose them. And sure, yeah, I bet.
Split and one is growing and the other just stopped.
Oh yeah, yep, exactly. Yep. So the plant is sort of like, the resources in the plant are like, oh, this one, we're going with this guy, he's going, like, great. And then the other one's like, I'm here. But like if that top one,
that's why it stopped one of them.
Fucking Clifford.
That's my roommate's cat.
Clifford. I love that name. That's a good one.
Much
another thing
that
auxin does. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm saying much better than Brownie, because I just learned before we were talking that Clifford's name was Brownie beforehand, but he's black, so I don't know why he would be a brownie unless he was a burnt brownie.
Yeah, it's a little questionable for sure. So the other thing that auxin does is, I said cell elongation. So auxin is also what causes your plants to stretch, or etiolate, which is just the fancy word for stretch out. Because it is degraded by sunlight. If it is not being degraded by sunlight, it causes those sections to stretch. And because it travels through the phloem on the outer ring, if one side of the plant is getting light, that side won't elongate and the other side will. And so you'll get this sort of bending effect towards the light.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Like, again, it's magic, but then like there's a reason. Like there's a reason for all of it. And it's so fun to learn about it, because then you're like, I know exactly why this is happening.
Yeah, it's like I know that happens. And
yeah,
like,
it's
okay,
like, yeah, of course they
I
want
know how
the
to
light.
counteract this, but I don't know what's actually going on in the background.
Yeah, like now you chemically know what your plant is thinking and why. Like, that's crazy to me. I just love it.
Yeah, really cool.
It's exciting.
It is exciting, and it's I think it's really empowering too, because you can start to avoid things. Like as soon as, like, I can tell if a plant is etiolated, even if it's not that much, because it'll also get kind of like pale, or like I can see it like immediately. And and as I'm sure you guys know, when you have so many plants and you're around plants for a long time, you start to be able to like catch those nuances really quickly and see like, oh, that was not growing that way before. And that's something that really only comes with experience. And that's what I tell a lot of people too, is like, and that's a lot of the advice on the internet too, is like, you have to kill plants, basically. Mm-hmm. That you have to learn, and you have to see what goes wrong to know what goes right. And I love to tell people that even botanists at botanical gardens kill plants, because it's true. Because people, like even professionals, kill plants. There's like a percentage that you just know are going to die, and that just happens. Sometimes they just don't make it. It's natural selection at work, baby.
It is. Some plants just aren't going to make it. They just say
and
goodbye.
I mean, it's true in the wild too. Like that, again, that is how natural selection
Survival
works.
of the fittest.
They don't get it. And in our homes, generally, those that are most tolerant of neglect are those that stick around. Like the oldest plants I've seen, Hoyas, Scheffleras, Thanksgiving cactus. Those are probably the big snake plants too. Like those are the ones that like survive the ages. But and also some plants sort of do have a lifespan. In theory, because of their modular growth, they could possibly be immortal. We could talk about that too. But,
I think we need to do a whole second follow-up episode on that.
What a concept. Oh my God. Science with Shea Flora.
Yeah, we could do it.
Amazing.
I got 5 years of botany info for you.
Our science correspondent.
Yeah. I would be happy to do it. I mean, that's what I like too. Like, I feel like there's so much good houseplant information on the internet, and there's also so much bad houseplant information on the internet.
People are just giving it out for the hell of it at this point.
Yeah, like they're like, I have 4 plants, like I can be a plant influencer, and I'm like, like live your dreams, but I'm sorry, you have no idea what you're doing. Like,
I always encourage people, I'm like, get on, share your plants. You don't need to share your care tips.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I'm like, I want to see it. I want to see it. But...
And I think that happens in a lot of like other hobbies, just with the way that the internet works. It's just kind of like everyone is
pet people, like animal people, crazy.
Fish Talk. Like
I was just
when I reached out to Fish Talk when I got my fish tank to try to get some tips, because like I used to be a very successful fish keeper in my younger years, but cool. I hadn't done it in so long, and I was like, oh God, they're brutal.
Oh my God, they're so mean. Like there's certain people that don't want to teach you. They're like, if you're not going to do this, don't even fucking bother.
Oh my God.
I was watching a dude earlier on TikTok talking about his birds, these birds that he loves. He like rescues birds, I guess, and he's like. He briefly mentioned something like the people who like are specifically into this one breed are psycho. He's like, I'm not going to talk much about them because the people are going to come for me, whatever the bird people of this one species.
I mean, think about like Tiger King, like those are real people. Like there are people like psycho. Not even the main characters maybe, but like some of the side characters that
we
they
have
like
a Tiger
interview,
King
like, in our
realm.
What's that?
King. I said we have our own Tiger King. I think they call him the Albo King.
Yeah.
Some people are gonna get it when they listen to this, and some people are gonna be like,
Nicole, you're gonna get us doxxed.
People are gonna be messaging John. I'm gonna message from John. He's like, "What the fuck are you fucking talking about me on your podcast?" Anyways.
Well, but it is like it's amazing how like up in arms people get, and
the people
again,
who are
with
just
any
like
hobby
going through. I'm like, where are you getting all these albos? Like all like when people like panning over the room, and there's just like cups and cups and cups and buckets of like single cuttings of albos. Like clearly they've like bought all these plants, and they're like. Only chopping them up because they know that's the only way they're going to make their money back, because they got a good deal on this whole aloe plant. So they're going to cut the whole thing up so they can make their money back and more. You're gross.
Yeah. Not about it. That's something that makes me really sad. And like, I think over the pandemic too, because houseplants like skyrocketed in popularity, like really, really fast. I think a lot of people went like really deep really fast, and then like actually didn't know how to take care of plants.
Yeah, it's
like
the obsession, the status symbol people are after.
And like, but they very much are living, like they are not, it's not like collecting
squishmallows.
Yeah.
I've been on a lot of Squishmallow Aftershock TikTok.
So many Squishmallow people on my TikTok lately. And I'm like, I got to stop watching through these whole videos. The TikTok algorithm is on to me.
Oh my God, funny.
I can't. Oh,
Yeah.
People are dedicated to it, lining up and
Yeah, I'm on like people who got
Fighting
really
people.
dedicated and now don't want to be dedicated anymore. Squishmallow TikTok.
they're recovering Squishmallow-aholics.
Oh, God.
Reformed Squishmallow people.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, like when I first started really getting to plants, which was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, or yeah, probably 5 years ago. I was like totally a hoarder. Like I kept every cutting and like I kept
Any
every
free
little
plant. Like
succulent
I'll take
leaf,
it all. Give me all
Yeah,
your
like,
rehabs.
anything. And it was like it was kind of gross at a certain point. Like it was like not like these plants aren't happy. I'm killing most of them. Like it wasn't a good place. And then now I'm like, okay, now I don't know how many houseplants I have, maybe like 100. I don't really actually have that many in my house, but I take care of so many that it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But now it's like my collection is very much reduced from what it maybe once was at a certain time, but now I have plants that I actually really like and maybe like saved up for, and stuff that I even like knew that I was going to be able to take care of. Like the only plant that I've really, well, actually today I bought my first plant in a long time, and I bought a pinguicula, which I'm very excited about. Like a little, yeah.
We are obsessed over here.
We are pink people.
They're so cute. They're so cute. So I'm really excited about that. My partner also really likes carnivorous plants.
Pings are so easy, in my opinion.
The easiest carnivorous plant, the best. Like the flowers, our chef's kiss. And now I don't know if you've like had any of them before, but now I'm getting into separating them because I had noticed that every time they flower, they like divide basically, and then there's like multiple plants. So now I've been able to actually pull them apart. I ripped one of Brandon's apart too, and then like actually have multiple
and
plants.
now the separation is flowering.
Yeah, amazing. I love it.
And the flowers are so gorgeous.
So pretty when they have multiple
So they
at once.
had one that was flowering at the nursery. I didn't get that one because I was like, oh, I want to see if I can get it to flower myself.
Oh yeah, you totally
like,
can.
Well,
it's so
like
easy.
the ones Nicole gave me within a month flowering.
Oh, I've had like flowers come out of ones that are the size of a dime. Like they don't need to be very mature to be flowering. They don't
the
even
one that I have is
like.
tiny.
And the flowering doesn't seem to like stunt the plant.
Yeah, it
at
doesn't
all.
do like it. They don't mind it. I've had multiple flowers on mine. I don't cut them off. I just let the plant like
the one that
it'll decide when it's done with
the
it.
first one you
right?
gave me is probably flowered 50 to 60 times since you've given it to me.
Wow.
I think this brings us into a good segue into our like last big topic, since we've been talking at each other for a while. And that's just, why is it important to share these uncommon plants? Like, why should we care about it? And why should we not be so greedy, maybe?
Yeah, capitalist motherfuckers. Sorry.
We love
if you know me
anti-capitalist plant
personally,
stuff.
Or I guess now you know
Yes.
me a little bit better, but like I don't talk about it a whole lot, like definitely not on TikTok or even on my social media very much, but I'm like a huge leftist, and I'm like not like, there are a lot of things about this world that make me very angry, and that is something that I'm very passionate about, but it spills in a lot. I guess the number one thing about like sharing plants and sharing especially like uncommon, quote uncommon or rare plants, it's a biodiversity thing, but it's also like a kindness thing and actually a resilience thing. So maybe not so much in the world of like Monstera albo or something. Like there's so many albos in the world, like it's not rare. Like there are literally tens of thousands.
They're being hoarded and
they're being,
made to be more.
They're being hoarded, but they're also just like, there's enough of them that it's never gonna like quote go extinct. And also
they're nowhere near being endangered.
No way. And honestly, like that plant's ecological place in the real world is not hyper important. Like Monstera is actually a weed, like even just regular Monstera is a weed in like Florida and Hawaii and other tropical regions around the world because it is so voracious and like such a strong grower, which is why it makes a great houseplant, but is hard to sort of keep growing all over everything and like
she's
literally
invasive.
strangling trees. Yeah. But we love them. We love them. But in general, what's really cool that like botanical institutions and even private collections do is that you share plants so that there's so many of a plant in so many different collections that it could never go extinct. And there are even examples where plants maybe were in the wild and then someone collected them and shared them around to maybe a few different private collectors and also botanical gardens. And then that region was actually like, oh, there was an example. I don't remember exactly what plant, but I read about it, or watched about in one of Summer Rain Oaks's videos about Fairchild Gardens, which is a botanical garden in Miami, and Summer is another like plantfluencer lady, but she makes pretty good videos. That one specifically. Anyway, in Puerto Rico, they lost an entire like endemic population of this one plant because of the hurricanes. And they were actually able to reintroduce the plant to that area from collections in botanical gardens and also in private collections. So it's kind of like the job that I'm starting is you want to protect that genetic information because sometimes in the wild, like shit happens and entire populations of a certain species will get wiped out in like a day, which is terrifying, honestly. And for some plants are really like keystone species in their quote communities or in their ecosystems. And like sometimes they have like specific pollinators that rely on them for food and animal interactions, and maybe they have a mutualism with another type of plant or something. And if those plants are lost, then they're gone forever, and those other species will be affected as well. And that can happen really rapidly and can cascade very quickly, and to great detriment to entire ecosystems, even if just one species is lost. So while it may not be so important for like biodiversity for like rare plants and houseplants, the idea still applies, and the sharing aspect is important because one, it makes things more accessible to people who are starting out in the hobby, drives the prices down. Yeah, like that's not what like greedy people want, right? But it is.
Oh my god, like the obliqua post, do you remember that?
Oh my gosh.
I do actually have a botanical question about obliqua that really relates to this. So 2 years ago, there were only 17 people in the world that had obliqua, and then all of a sudden it was everywhere. Do you know more about that any of the behind the scenes?
Everyone was hashtag it's never obliqua.
Yeah. I don't know about that specifically. I know that I know that it was like really, really, really rare, because it was, and there a lot of Monstera species and tropical species in general grow in really limited areas because of how dense the forest is there, like particularly the cloud forest in say like Costa Rica. If you're in one section and then you walk 200 meters in another direction, you're going to have like a whole different set of plants. That's how dense it is and how limited the specific ranges of species are. So there's going to be a ton of different species in the same genus, maybe in a very small region. So I think obliqua was collected maybe twice. And then those two plants were propagated and sent around to different people. And basically they weren't on the market because there wasn't really demand for them for a long time. They were just like, this is weird, like cool, like you
look at these holes, so cool.
Yeah, look, we've got big holes, it's funny, that's weird. And that happens with a lot of plants too, is like they've been growing in collections forever. It's just like there was never really the demand for it. And that's something that's really crazy with social media as well. So what I think happened is, I mean, it is a Monstera. It is I've heard it's fairly difficult to grow. I don't have one, but heard it's fairly difficult to grow. But like if you have a few people who say, let's say 8 cuttings, and then those 8 people make 8 cuttings after, because it was so valuable for so long, I think people were really apt to propagate it when they did get it, and didn't really like let it grow for that long. Like I think Enid at NSC Tropicals, like she just had one like growing under her nursery bench, like she didn't care about it, and then she probably cut it up and then gave that to people, and then those people, and it's sort of the exponential way about plants is so interesting that we can just chop them up and then like make new ones, which is weird, but amazing. But I think it just I think it was just propagated really quickly and spread around really quickly, and now, like you said, now it's really available to everyone, which is cool, and people can get a little bit more interested in about like the different maybe forms of it, and like that's what I hope will happen with a lot of plants. So
yeah, I can't stop thinking about the Facebook post when like there's this specific oblique selling group, and they didn't want the like value to be diminished so quickly, so they put a halt to sales. They were like,
you could only trade.
I'd like, you can trade and share pictures all you want, but no selling, buying of oblique in this group, because we don't want to devalue the species, because no one fucking wanted them. I was like, the demand is going down. Like,
it's so strange.
People were over it. I'm like, people were growing these from nodes.
People really think that they've like found their niche for like their life's work. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna be an oblique seller, and those people probably like invested a ton of money up front. Like
that's why these people are deranged. They cannot accept the fact that they took their fancy little plant car off the lot and it diminished in value immediately, and they want their money back. But I'm sorry, that's just not how it works.
It's not how it works. Plants really aren't a great investment. Like,
they're not. No.
Unless you're like really
unless you're a greedy fucker that's chopping the whole thing up.
And like we were talking with Sonia, like cacti, that's a little bit more because they do not grow quickly. Like you got to wait 25 years before it's mature.
You got to listen to our episode with Sonia made me cry.
Yeah, it's like horticulturalists will sell like large cacti. I find this like when I'm trying to buy big cacti for clients, they're really expensive, which makes sense because these cacti are probably like 15 years old, and they're expensive. The grower really isn't making that much money. Like they horticulturists in general, like they do their business on a very, very fine margin. Because there's so much input that goes into these plants, and even though you're going to pay like a high price tag, that's years and years of labor. Like my dad, he grows trees. He sells trees when they're maybe like 8 or 12 feet tall, and he's been growing them for maybe 5 to 8 years. And there's a ton of water that goes into that. They prune them, they fertilize them. There's like, it is a long-term investment, and you're really not making money.
Yeah,
really that much at the end.
Charging your hourly wage for that plant that you raised for years.
Yeah, no way. Like it would never happen. Like, I have an hourly rate. If I charge people that for like one plant, it would be ridiculous. Like it just doesn't, it doesn't conflate to the value like that. Yeah, if you chop and flip a plant, maybe you'll make some money. You'll make maybe you make $100 but like in this economy, like that's really not that much.
You're gonna be cutting up a lot of plants. Like,
you're gonna have to be cutting up a lot of plants. Yeah,
which is what they do. Anyways. Well, we've been chatting for a while.
Yeah, we're this is one of our longer episodes. We definitely have to have a part 2. I have learned more in the last hour and a half.
I hope people like it.
Yeah, we just touched the surface of the planty science, which I'm really excited about, because this isn't something that we can really give people. This isn't like, I don't have any education on the plants. Like, it's just my special interest and hobby.
Yeah, we have no professional training.
Yeah, I did not go to school for this shit. I went to school for, I feel like, everything but this. How many times I changed my major.
I obviously couldn't understand plant cell biology, so I stopped there.
Yeah, I literally skipped math any way I could with my BA. So don't
well,
have any
seriously, like
science.
something that I think has made a huge difference in my life again is like teachers and having good teachers. It sounds so cliche, like, you know, adults always tell you that. You're like, yeah, you hope you have good teachers, like blah, blah, blah. But it really does make a world of difference. I've had some really cool science teachers, and then of course my botany teachers are rad, and then also just like being, I think, exposed to plants and science at a young age, like, you know, gave me maybe a leg up. But I think I hope that science in general, particular, we're talking like very Western sort of European standard science, which is not always, I don't think is like the pinnacle of science by any means. It's just what I'm trained in personally. Braiding Sweetgrass is a great book. I have it right here. That has like an indigenous perspective about botany as well, which is really beautiful.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, definitely worth reading. I listened to it on tape as well, but a good one. But I really hope that science can be more accessible, because scientific understanding is like, I think also helps with like empathy and understanding the world, and feeling like the beautiful, like reciprocal nature of nature, you know. And there's a lot of it's not all just like chemistry and numbers and like gross, like I think a lot of people recoil when they talk of, like when people say science or when people say biology, and I hope to like change that with my videos and like with my outreach on my in my little circle that I have. And it's fun to see people get really excited about it. So I appreciate you guys having me here too.
Yeah,
well, thank you.
It's very exciting to us. I don't know. How could you think that that's like gross or weird? Like just having the universe explained to you.
Because
like,
I feel like we're like very in tune with the universe. We just don't have the behind the scenes. So now that knowing more of the behind the scenes makes it just so much more profound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I find exciting too, is like the more you know you don't know, right? Maybe you've heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
And it is true. Like it really is. Like you could study the world and everything in it for millions of years and not have unturned every rock. Like it's really expansive, and so it's really for me it's really fulfilling, because it's not dependent on a ton of stuff, but it's really special when you know. I don't know. I could get really cheesy about it. I already kind of have, but it's really cool. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of fun to have doing it. Like also just doing scientific exploration is like fun. Like, yeah, let's go poke around in the dirt and like look at worms and like cut up plants and cut up flowers and like look at their insides. Like it's so weird, but it's so awesome. Like a microscope, that's like the number one thing sometimes I tell people is like buy yourself a microscope. Buy yourself like a $20 little microscope and some slides and just like cut it up and like look at cells.
Oh my God.
It's so beautiful.
I don't need another hobby. I don't need another closet of things.
Fair enough.
I'm already struggling. You know how much stuff is in my basement now? I'm like all my painting stuff, all the embroidery stuff, all of the like musical instruments.
Well, the thing is, you're like good at a lot of things. I'm not good at a lot of things. So for me, it's like I invest all this money in a hobby that I'm not good at.
I don't want to try anything I'm not good at. You got to figure out what you're like the little things that make you good at things.
And it also doesn't matter if you're not good at stuff. Like if you're just having
I will
fun,
not
that's
fail.
all that matters.
Well, my brain does not have fun when it's not doing good. So
I know how that goes. I get that too. But yeah.
Well, I definitely think we need to do a part 2. So we will definitely have to dive into some more of these sciencey questions, because this was so fun. Like I wanted to keep going, but obviously we need to make this digestible.
Yeah. And speaking of digestion, I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too. It's
Same.
about
Food
that time.
All right, friend.
Time. Well, I'm so happy you guys liked it enough to do part 2. That's nice.
Oh my God. Like, let's get this scheduled like ASAP.
Yeah, no, this is really fun. And I think it's a cool way to like for me to talk to new people and to like get this information out there and hopefully make plants a little bit more, or plant science specifically, a little bit less intimidating.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, do you want to plug your business and tell people where they can find you and what you've got going on?
Yeah, sure. So the best place to follow me is probably Instagram at Chezflora, CHEZFLORA. That means House of Plants in French, roughly, which is kind of fun.
I like it.
And then I have a website, which you can find through my Instagram as well. You can find my plants here locally at Kansas City Kitty Boutique, which is a really amazing women's clothing boutique. We also have like accessories and lots of other cute stuff. The girls that work there are like amazing. They're so sweet. So I have plants there. And then yeah, on TikTok, also Chezflora, CHEZFLORA.
Yes, you guys go follow them on TikTok for just those random little snippets of science. There's always something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to take that then and make that your little thing.
Yeah, that should be your hashtag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You set a
No,
hashtag? That's a good one.
Snippet
That
of
is a good one.
science.
Nicole should have gone to school for marketing. Not gonna lie.
I did, and it was one of my 10 majors. Thank you. I hated my marketing class so much.
Perfect. Snippets of science. I'm using that. Thanks.
Do it.
Yeah, neither of us are gonna use it, so it's all
So many
yours.
things I come up with, and I'm like, friends, please take my ideas. I don't have the means to make it a
Oh,
thing.
I love it. Sharing is caring.
We love
Love
it.
it.
All right, Brandon, where can people find you?
You can find me on social media, Brandon Botanical, Instagram, TikTok, and the YouTube. You can also find my Amazon storefront at Brandon Botanical. You can find my website, monsteraplant.co, where I sell plants and other planty things. We do actually this episode. Oh, when is this airing?
I know it's hard to talk about when things are...
It's a monthly thing. Okay, if you live in the Minnesota area, we will be having a monthly.
Are you going to be doing a monthly thing?
Yeah, it's month. It's going to be.
You're like, okay, we're going to do
April
this.
to September, probably.
You better be quitting your second job then. I'm going to hold you to it.
We are doing a monthly plant swap and vendor market. It is called Foliage Fling and Market. We will have it all over our Instagram, monsteraplant.co, and our website, I'm sure. So sign up for our mailing list if you want to get that first email.
Come hang out.
I wish I could come to the plant swap. That'd be so fun.
I know
need to
Sam wants
organize
us
it
to
this
like
year.
interview people in person and like talk about things.
I think it'll be fun, especially having multiple months where we can actually like do it. She also had the smart idea that we shouldn't run our own booth. We should have people run our booth, so then we can
run
the event.
around.
Yeah, nice.
That sounds fun.
Also, we deemed you the plant swap coordinator, so that's your responsibility.
I love just
Surprise.
being told this. I'll plan the swap.
Yeah, I was like, we could probably delegate that to Nicole.
I've watched enough. I've done enough of them.
Yeah, and where can they find you, Nicole?
And Nicole Larson Grows on Instagram and Tickety Talkety.
And you can find our podcast at Where Are We Growing on Instagram, and wherearewegrowing.com is our website. And definitely go to our website. You can find your favorite podcast provider. We're on all the weird ones too. But if you happen to be listening on Apple, definitely give us a 5-star review. Again, we have not had enough to read them on air. So please give us a review so we can read it on air, but only if it's 5 stars, because we like to bully you into giving us good ratings.
Yeah, Brandon will cry if it's any less.
I bought a $600 soundboard, $300 of mics, all because of one 4-star review. Also, someone gave us a 4-star review on Spotify, and I am not happy about it.
Wait, did they say any? It's just
You can't say anything on Spotify, so I don't know why they only give us 4
dropped
stars.
the star
So
and ghosted.
We're 4.9.
4.9.
Probably because the audio on season 1. So anyway, please give me a 5-star review or I will cry.
Oh my God, I might too. Jesus. Oh my God.
People are brutal out there.
Okay, Nika, thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, thank
We
you
will-
so much for having me. This
Yeah.
is so much fun.
We will be chatting soon. Should
Hell
we throw the
yeah.
music in there, Brandon?
Oh, shoot. We keep forgetting to play the music. So maybe it'll be playing now, maybe not. We'll see when the
Yeah.
post-editing happens. Just another step that I will forget to do.
You better remember. Sometimes I got to be like, hey, Brandon, it's Wednesday.
Where's the podcast? And then I wake up at 8
Sometimes
a.m.
I just don't say anything. I'm like, he's
Is it
probably
every
had
Wednesday?
It's supposed to be.
Love it.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye.